Life isn't perfect, and neither are we.
Nope. But we know how to face our fears.
And have some fun.
And talk about all the messiest things of life.
Like the messiest things.
Get connected to yourself, get connected to others, and get connected to the life right in front of you.
This is The Connected Life with Justin and Abby.
That's me.
That's you.
And you. Oh, hey there.
No.
Hey, hey, bunny, buddy, foo-foo, choo-choo-choo.
Stop. Why are you doing that?
Mr. Honeypot.
I don't like that.
Oh, I like you so much, sunshine
I hate that even
face.
more. You're increasingly pissing me off.
Mr. Hot Sauce.
Why are you doing this to me?
Stud hubbery.
Listen, you're making this really difficult for me. Nah.
Yeah.
Nah.
Oh, you got your panties in a twist over there?
No.
Yeah. I'm saying all these nice, kind, affectionate names towards you.
You don't understand how you affect people, and you often create scenarios that make my life difficult. Ooh, what does that lead into?
Oh, are you trying to give the leaders a taste? The leaders.
The leaders? The leaders? The people a taste. Do you want a taste of what this episode's about?
You giving them a little introduction?
Little example. I wonder if that spiked anybody's anxiety. Where they're like, is he really serious? Is he a little angry? Yeah, all those kids that grew up in houses of yelling and screaming, they're like, oh, mom and dad are
why are you doing this?
Stop it.
Or the other way around, the kids who grew up in that are like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm home. It feels so good.
This feels so relaxing. This is so normal.
Yeah.
Yeah, anyways. People watching.
Yeah.
You were saying.
I was, okay.
We're going to bring this full circle. You just hold on there.
I love people watching.
I do too. Recently, I was hanging out in the kitchen, looking out my back window, and I was just observing my neighbor very creepily, to which I took a picture of him. He's standing out there all sweaty with his shirt off. Uh-huh. And then I texted him that picture. I said, hey, what you doing? What you doing? But it wasn't as creepy as you'd think it would be.
Because, why?
Because I know him.
I don't know. That's still pretty creepy. It'd be really funny, though, if it was a neighbor who didn't have your phone number and they just got a picture of themselves sweating.
I think that's coming from the neighbor's house over there. Yeah, that's real.
I'm quite delighted by our neighbors. They just moved in.
And they're people that we know, but we don't know them really well.
No. We know of them and we think they're cool.
Yeah. And so recently they did the first night of moving in. They did a little drop by our house. Freaking out, wanting a plunger.
It wasn't the first night, but it was the first few nights.
Okay, wanting a plunger and then a snake for the toilet.
Oh, yeah, because they thought their daughter had dropped some toys.
Because they have children that are ruining their lives.
Destroying their lives.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and so they actually thought maybe she'd dropped a toy in and then they'd all pooped over it and it was all stuck.
And
so
then
they borrowed a
plunger
didn't
and
work,
tools,
came
and
back
all of a
and got
sudden
a snake.
He's in the backyard, and all because his daughter doesn't know what she's doing. He now has poop all over his feet because he's opened up a
snake.
And all kinds of stuff like that. It's just ugh.
But here's what happened.
Yeah.
In the middle,
it was bonding.
After the plunger, before the snake poop everywhere moment, we get a frantic text from him.
I need to poop in your toilet.
And basically what had happened was...
He did it in the voice of Batman. I need to poop in your toilet.
And basically what happened was he was like, I was staring at all this poop, trying to get it to go down. And I think thinking about it just all of a sudden stirred up all of these... The feelings, and I had to go instantly.
Yeah. He came flying in crowning, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So that's a segue.
Then he sent us a text while he was on
the toilet.
Yeah, saying he was destroing the toillet.
Yeah, and did he ever? Did he ever?
But I thought that's a good
shout out
way.
To you, Steve.
Name out there. That is a good way to meet your neighbors.
It's not like I said his last name more.
It's like, come on over, use our toilet. We loved it because we were like, these are our people.
Yeah, totally.
You can come use our toilet anytime.
So his daughter destroyed his life.
Yeah.
Right.
You segueing again?
Yeah,
segueing trying to
again.
Give lots of examples.
Into blame-free communication.
Dun, 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 dun.
Today we have on our podcast someone that you guys all love because she's been here before. Her name is Laura Duncan. She is a fellow life consultant.
Wait, let me tell why I wanted her to talk about this.
I don't care.
Okay. So a couple years ago, we went on a trip and we were talking about shame. Shame is so debilitating and disconnecting in relationship, and it's an epidemic that all of humanity has. Mm-hmm. And she was telling stories about how she has learned to deal with shame, her own shame in parenting. And it was so revolutionary to me. I loved hearing it so much, and I thought it was such a good idea that I wanted everybody to get to hear it. But the thing I like about it is whether you have kids or whether you are married or whether you are single and just trying to do life with people, it's the same concept for every relationship you have, which is how do you actually deal with your shame and your pain when emotions come up? So we're going to talk today a little bit about triggers. And triggers are basically when you're in a relationship with somebody and something that they do or say, you suddenly feel emotions.
Strong emotions that are being provoked suddenly. And a lot of times those emotions aren't even equal to the situation that's sitting in front of you at some level.
Yeah, they're disproportionate
And
often.
Laura, you may want to jump in if you have any other opinions on triggers or what that looks like.
So triggers are physical, mental, emotional.
Yes.
And when a circumstance or person triggers us, we're going to feel that flood of emotion that Abby's talking about. We're going to feel that irrational or sometimes even rational response to it.
Yep.
But it's still irrational inside of us.
Right.
And it causes the fight, flight, freeze.
Yes. So
Or fawn,
basically, when we get into that mode, it becomes about self-protection. It becomes about and our brains are amazing. So they are built to help us survive, and they're built to gather data in our life. So anytime someone has hurt me, my brain gathers all of the data about them hurting me or all of the data about a circumstance. And so our brain is constantly looking for anything that could remind us of anything that could hurt us. And then it sends a huge alert to our body, our emotions, our mind, being like, danger, danger, danger. And then we have all of these defense circumstances. So the reason this happened originally was very helpful for us. So when cavemen ran into a lion the first time, they're like, oh, look at a pretty kitty cat. Meow, meow. Let's go pet it. And then the lion. Yeah,
and that's the sound of them being eaten.
The lion eats one of them.
Those
One of
that
them gets away,
survived.
though. So now their brain has collected that data. Oh, when I see a lion, I should run. So it's actually a beautiful survival skill that we have that helps create triggers for us, but it can create a lot of chaos in our lives. So I want,
Go ahead.
You want to interrupt me?
I was wondering what Laura was thinking over there.
Oh yeah. What are you thinking over
I
there?
was thinking all these thoughts. I'll share one.
Yeah, go ahead.
No. So it actually reminded me of parenting and how I used to joke around, people would be like, oh, child abuse. I'm like, what about parent abuse? And that's actually
funny.
what reminds me. There's this little 2-year-old that cannot physically harm you. I mean, they could throw something at you, whatever, but really they can't harm you.
Totally.
But we feel like they are the predator. They are the wild animal chasing us, and we are being triggered by them, feeling abused, feeling taken advantage of, feeling used.
Feeling
and
powerless.
Exactly. And it feels very real, even though our logical adult brain is thinking they're 2 years old.
And how are they running my soul right now?
And why did they plug up my toilet?
Totally.
You're destroying my
me.
life.
Yes. So tell us a little bit about your parenting journey, what it used to look like and what it looks like now.
Yeah. So when I first started parenting, I did a lot more. I was raised in a good home where parenting discipline was done in a mostly healthy way.
That's awesome.
I didn't feel like we did get disciplined. We did get spanked, but it was in a loving way. There was forgiveness. There was connection.
That's awesome.
I felt like parenting was not easy, but there was a method to it. And if you did X, Y, and Z, you're going to have a great kid.
Oh.
And so I was like, hey, parenting's easy.
I'll follow the rules and I'll have great kids.
Boom.
Yeah.
And then I had my firstborn. And I looked at her and I was like, oh my goodness.
She was a monster that came to destroy your life.
Parent abuse. And so she's a very amazing girl. She's 17 now. Amazing. But when she was little, she was very strong.
Strong
she would
and powerful.
not break. You could not get her to do it. Like I try to do like empathy techniques that parenting do where they're like, how would you feel if Billy did this to you? And she'd be like, I don't care. Billy could do it to me again. And I'd be like, oh, that didn't work.
Note to self.
Yeah.
She's a monster.
Totally. Yeah. And she was really smart. Like when she first learned to write, she wrote her brother's name on all the furniture because she knew that if she wrote her name, we would know.
That's
smart. Brilliant.
Yeah, totally. So she was a smart
Yes.
She's a future president right
yeah.
there.
No, really. She is a powerful girl, really strong, really amazing. But in parenting, she didn't fit my mold at all.
No.
Yeah.
The one
And you're
plus
like,
one
wait a
did
second.
not equal
I
two.
thought that if I parented you, you would do the right things.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, exactly.
Look, I'm doing so well.
So whose problem is it?
The kids, of course.
Of course.
Uh-huh.
So in that stage of parenting, it was 90% her problem.
Right.
Yeah.
That I, as a parent, would take my 10% responsibility
Yep.
and discipline her and help her to become an outstanding citizen in the world.
That sounds
Yeah.
about right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So really, it's her, and it's my responsibility to help her become better.
Right.
Duh. Yeah.
Yeah, it
course.
made sense
I mean,
to me.
literally, you're saying that, and I'm like, everybody who's listening is like, yeah, that's what parenting is.
Uh-huh.
Exactly.
100%.
Wait a second. Are you about to spin this on
Plot
us?
thickens.
Oh.
So that's how I started parenting, especially with her being a little bit more outside the box. But now parenting is 90% me and 10% her. And I might even be being generous with the 10%. It's probably more like a 95%.
Sounds like
me
you're
and
just trying to
5%
raise
her.
another millennial.
Yeah, just trying
One
to
of those
let her off
millennials
the
that's
hook.
destroying
It's not
the world.
You, it's me.
Totally.
Yeah. So, but what led me to that conclusion was what was going on inside my internal world. So she would do her thing. She
Yep.
would be strong and bold and do what she wanted to do.
Uh-huh.
And it would feel like it was happening to me.
What? Explain more what that would feel like.
So, I can remember times where, verbally, you're the worst mom. And I would be like, I can't believe she said that. I would never say that to my mom. That's horrible behavior.
Right.
She's the problem.
Yeah.
And I loved bringing my jury in. I called a jury where like I would be like, look what she did. And everyone would be like, oh, you poor thing. I'm so sorry. I don't know how you do it.
Oh,
You need
totally.
a medal. And I'd be like, yeah.
Yeah.
90%
You're
her.
right.
Boom. And then I'd take a little 10% credit and be like, yeah, I really should probably do this or this. But really, it's her problem.
Right.
And so that
Parents
felt,
do love doing that.
oh, yeah, it feels good.
The jury.
It does.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
The
Yeah.
jury, bringing them in. Yeah.
Like, yeah, I'm a pretty good parent. I'm pretty awesome.
But this
The
kid.
kid is a monster.
Exactly.
How are they made?
Who did this?
Bad seed, I guess.
Yeah. And who did it is really the question. Not in a shaming way, not in a
Right.
blaming way, but my internal world is affecting this child far more than I know. And it's not about your parenting style. It's not about how you do parenting. It's how you are a parent.
I
Interesting.
think that's a good way to say it. Go
Yeah.
ahead, elaborate on that.
So,
how you are a parent.
I forget what the number is, but there is so many parenting books, and they're all telling you how to do parenting.
It's so true. These 7 simple steps
Yeah.
to get that to work.
How many steps will we have today?
0.
0 steps. Oh, you just wasted your time.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sorry, no quick fix. No, I'm just joking. But so those steps help us feel good because if we can identify why what this children's problem is, then we can fix it and we can live happily ever after.
Right.
Yeah.
But the thing about that doesn't work, ask any parent how many parenting books they've read. They're going to answer at least multiple
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
they're trying to figure out this thing.
Totally.
Parenting books are great.
Yeah.
Figuring
Where's
out
the
what to
damn
do with
manual?
your-
I've read them all.
Yeah, exactly. It's great. I mean,
Uh-huh.
read your books. That's amazing.
Right.
But if you don't take care of your internal world as a parent, those books
Absolutely.
mean nothing.
Nothing at all.
Even if you're doing it perfectly to a T, if my internal world feels frantic and triggered like you're talking about, that trigger is being communicated to that child, even if
Whether
I'm the
you-
calmest parent.
Yep.
Mhm, They are
here's the-
completely feeling that.
It is something that I think, and this is also spouse to spouse and friend
Yep.
to friend, because I can, and Justin can attest to this, I can
Here it
calmly,
goes.
softly say
The right way.
the right way words to him when we're in a fight. I can be like, I am feeling very triggered right now. And you could I could say it nicely, but you can feel
Oh, Lord.
There's a force
what
coming
is
at you.
happening
Yeah.
inside
Uh-huh.
of me. And it is an interesting thing when
And I'm like, you're hating me right now.
Totally.
I didn't say I hate you. I feel it.
yeah, which is frustrating because it's an intangible thing.
Mm-hmm.
But when I work with parents so much, especially first-time parents, this is one of the biggest things because there's such an oldest child syndrome.
There really is.
And it is a perfectionist ideal. And I'm like, of course it is, because they can feel their parent. Their parent feels like, I have to do this perfect. I'm going to mess this kid up. If I don't do everything right, it's going to be a mess. And so they're being raised with anxiety about perfection. And I'm like, you're teaching your kid more by how you are treating yourself about parenting. That's how they're going to learn how to be a human. Like, so if you're kind, that it's okay that you don't know what you're doing. If you're kind to yourself, giving yourself grace and being like, I am going to make mistakes, but I will clean them up. The way you treat yourself is actually going to impact your kid far more than you understand.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I usually say to my, and I think that this might tag along here, when I get a couple in my office, and the first thing out the gate is each one of them wants,
like, it's his fault.
Here's all the horrible things that she or he has done, and let me put it all on the table. And I usually write this thing on the board that says, I am not my spouse.
My spouse
is not my problem. I am my own effing problem. I usually word it like that. I was like, read this out loud, and then they get jarred by the wording of it all.
Yeah.
And I was like, I want this to be jarred in the deepest place of your psyche. How are you your problem? Well, I'm not. They did. All right, then we're going to just spin our wheels here until you can figure out how you're your problem before we get going here. And that's where we begin, is like getting rid of the blame of how am I my problem. It doesn't mean my partner isn't doing things that are chaotic or destructive, but something inside of me from the very get-go is feeling really powerless and out of control due to me.
Yeah. That's really good. Yeah. And that I work with couples too. And that's exactly what it is. And I start out, I'm not your referee. And, it's not going to be he said, she said.
Yep.
And what the funny thing is, the victim in the relationship,
they want a referee.
Yeah, they do. And they get so mad at me.
Oh,
yes.
I've seen the sweetest wives or sweetest husbands, it goes both ways, be so upset when I say, that's blame. So you'd be okay if they were talking to you like that? Didn't say that.
Totally.
But there's something going on inside your internal world that's causing you to blame. And if until we get to that, we can referee, we can fix him all day long, and it's not going to change.
Would you say that blame, that concept of blame, is the idea that I am blaming this outside circumstance for my inability to be at peace?
Definitely. Yeah.
Maybe a way to say it. So when they're sitting there, they're like, yeah, but wouldn't you feel pain if this happened? Like, yes, there is pain, but you have the power to manage yourself.
Yeah.
And you're trying to get this person to change to get rid of your pain. Is that what we're...
Yeah, no, definitely. Blame is like a hot potato. It's this uncomfortable pain, and we don't know what to do with it. So I want to get rid of it, so I'm going to throw it at you.
Yeah.
And then you're not going to want to hold on to it, so you're going to throw it at Abby.
Yep.
And we're going to continue this game for 20 years.
Totally.
Because I don't know what to do with this pain. And you are the justifiable person to blame because I have a whole case against you.
Right.
And so that's ultimately what's happening in that. And people carry it with them their whole marriage.
Yeah. So, wait, no. I have a question.
No.
Okay, so you're on this journey. You have this kid that is very strong and you're frustrated. What helps you start connect like the blame for you, and what do you start recognizing is actually happening with you?
Yeah. So I had to really get to, there's different types of blame, and one of the most powerful justifiable blame. So her behavior justified my reaction to her.
Oh, that's so good. That is very good.
That's a good way to put it.
Yep.
Yes.
And so I would say her actions justified this reaction going on inside
The
of me.
reason I'm frustrated is because you did ...
Which was my joking at the beginning of this.
Yes.
When we started going on.
Yeah.
You're making me so angry.
You're making me feel this way. So this child's making me feel this way. And so I need to control it. Control the child. I need to stop it. I need to teach them. I need to do these things to get them to stop making me feel
out
this
of
way.
control.
Uh-huh.
I need to stop this outside thing that is making my insides feel crazy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so one of the biggest hindrances in parenting is when I'm thinking that way, I can no longer connect to my child. So I love my daughter.
Yes. They become a robot to be managed.
Yeah. They have to be managed. And because I'm so triggered, my brain's not working correctly. She's a predator.
Right.
But there's no intimacy there.
Because triggers actually stop your relational circuit in your brain.
Yeah, exactly.
So you are no longer, once you are triggered, you are no longer going through relationship with your relationship circuit towards that person.
Yep.
You are now in protection.
You're in protection, you're in primal, and I also like to call it child brain.
Yeah.
So she's 5 and I'm 5. So who's the parent here? And those are the outbursts parents have.
Well, and spouses and
for sure.
People and friends. Like we all, when we trigger, go back to, so why do you call it primal?
I call it primal because the fight or flight is causing us to go into primal, adrenaline-filled survival instinct. It's almost animalistic. You have superpowers. You're stronger than you normally are. You are going to survive at all costs. It's very animalistic.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It also is overriding your adult brain. So I call it a child brain because when you go into fight or flight, your adult brain doesn't work anymore.
Yes.
So all those parenting books that you read,
Logic is gone.
they do not work
so
anymore.
That is so true. As soon as the trigger happens, and this is a really beautiful part of how our brains are wired. They are wired to help us survive. And so our brain is always collecting data on anything that can hurt us. So we go through an event where something hurts us and our brain collects the sights and the smells and the sounds and everything that was happening before and the feelings. And it collects all that data so that then we can always protect ourselves from that happening again to us. And I always say it's like survival skills from the way long ago. Like back in the day when there were cavemen and they see like a lion and they're like, oh, look at what a cute little kitty cat. Meow, meow, meow. And they like go up to pet the kitty cat.
I don't think you know what sounds lions make.
Well, they didn't know.
Have you ever watched
No,
National
they didn't know.
Geographic?
That's why I'm saying they didn't know when they went up.
Rawr.
Rawr. They didn't know. So they go to pet the lion, but then the lion eats one of them. So now their brain collects the data. When you see a lion run, they are dangerous. So it's actually, the survival skill is a beautiful and a powerful thing for humans to have, for us to collect data that warns us we're not safe.
Yep.
But what happens in our brain when that happens is the blood actually goes out of the logic part of your brain. And it goes into the part of your brain to give you the best reaction to survive.
Which should not be logical if you want to survive.
Yeah. No,
Right.
it's not logic. You just run. Like, or hide,
And you jump
or
and you do
pretend to be
things that you
dead,
would
or
not do.
yes.
Right.
And so there's actually, it literally is our brains, and our brains actually do this thing in survival moments where it shuts down everything it thinks is not necessary. Because the only thing we want is to survive. So like in that moment, your logic and all of your emotions shut down when the lion is there. And the only thing left is that your body is ready to run.
Hence referring to the child as a predator. Which is funny. I love the predator child. Do you have a predator child in your home?
Yeah. And one thing that reminded me when you said you're collecting data, so you're collecting data your whole life.
Yes.
So who does that child remind you of?
Right.
Who does that strong child remind you of? Danger.
Yes.
A dangerous parent, a dangerous person in your life. And so you're translating that child is dangerous based on your whole story, not just even their behavior in that moment.
Yeah, your brain is telling you, it's taken the previous data and it says, this feels the same. I feel powerless to this 2-year-old the same way I felt powerless to my mom. And so because of that, I need to react.
Yeah.
And then you're out of your mind.
And that's where shame comes in parenting. I can't believe I acted that way. I can't believe I think my child's a monster. I can't believe I had such a big reaction to them spilling a glass of milk.
That's real.
So true.
To so many parents. I love that you pointed that out.
Yes.
Then they spiral and then they repeat the cycle.
Yeah,
exactly. Because
themselves
we're
and
not
it keeps
actually
going.
we say, guess what? Next time I'm going to do better. But shame says you're going to do better next time, but you didn't actually take care of why it was hurting in the first place.
Yes.
Yep. Well, you tried to. You spanked the kid and you told them they're bad and they need to
put
change.
them in the corner and then
This should work, right? I'll be better next time.
Yeah.
No,
maybe with
I have
the
my
other
own
kid.
problem.
Yeah.
And that's not to say the kid isn't doing destructive things, and that's
No.
not to say the kid doesn't need to be taught all these
yeah.
guidance, all this stuff.
Behavior is definitely supposed to be addressed.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And so that kind of brings me to the story of how I started to implement not blaming my child and starting to be able to actually intimately connect with them in the midst of the trigger.
Tell
Good.
us.
Tell us about that.
And so before, she was the problem. I was the good one. She was the bad one. Then I realized my fear, my out of control feeling, my confusion, not knowing what to do with her was actually what was really causing her to react because I was out of control. She was out of control. So then when I would look at her after I had taken care of my own heart, I would speak to myself while she was doing her thing. I would be like, it's okay. I know you're really scared right now. I know she seems like a predator, but she's just your baby girl. That might sound really like trivial, but you have to in the moment because that's how real it feels.
Yes.
Yep.
And so I would
Otherwise,
be like,
you wouldn't be blowing your gaskets and wanting to throw a fist to the wall over something that's like 30 pounds worth of weight.
yeah, exactly.
Acting
That
out.
sometimes did something very small that we have a big response to.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I'm comforting myself. I'm telling myself it's going to be okay.
But you
yeah.
skipped a step because that means you recognized when you were triggering.
Exactly. So I'm paying attention. I do this thing where I say, like, observe your triggered self. Because a lot of times with people, I'll say, what did you physically feel? And they're like, nothing. What did you think? Nothing. What did you emotionally feel? I was angry. That tells a very small story.
Yep.
Yes.
And it also leaves us powerless to the trigger because when it comes up, because it's unknown, it's powerful.
Right.
So I started paying attention to what I physically felt when she had an outburst. I started
That's
paying
good.
attention to what my thoughts were. They were wild. I started like giggling when I would start listening to them. Like, who's thinking up there? Because my triggered brain thoughts.
What kinds of thoughts would it
so
be?
my triggered brain thoughts would be really hopeless. They would be like, she's never going to change. I'm never going to be able to help her. She's going to go and do horrible things in this life.
She's going to be a murderer.
No, really though, like my brain is already there and it's like elaborating. It's like creating this story that's not even happening, but
Yeah.
it feels real to me at that moment. It's never going to change.
Totally.
I'm a really hope-filled person.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so that's who I am. I am hopeful. But in my moment of trigger, I'm thinking the most hopeless thoughts that if a person could like tap into my brain in that moment, they'd be like, who is that? Like,
Right.
that's not you. Like, it's
Totally.
so foreign to me when I'm actually paying attention. But in my
Yes.
trigger, it's familiar. It's my old
Right.
friend. This is what I feel when I get triggered by something
Yep.
that feels dangerous. And so being able to recognize, oh, you're physically having
What did you
manifestations.
physically, what would you notice about your triggers
So
physically?
as soon as she would start doing her thing, my stomach would get really tight. My jaw, I would feel like I was like kind of locking it a little bit. My brain would feel really cloudy. Like I would be like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do.
Wow.
And it would feel very helpless. It would feel
Yes.
very hopeless. And it would also feel like I couldn't be here right now. Like I just wanted to be away from her.
I want to go. I
Right.
want to escape.
Yeah. Oh, I wanted to escape so much. I just wanted it to be gone. And I would think like someday this will be over, even though she's 2 years old and I have 16 more years.
Totally.
But yeah, there was these extreme mental thoughts, but also there's these physical responses that were happening.
Yes. And I think this is so huge. I just want to stop right here because step one in any relationship in learning how to do connection well is learning your triggers and learning what it feels like. And I think even for me and Justin, we have both gotten really good at like our emotional triggers, but we've had to start working really hard to notice the physical sensations. Because the thing is, your mind doing those things and your body doing those things feels so normal that most people don't even notice.
Yeah. You've been doing it
Like,
your whole life.
I've been doing them my whole life. So when my counselor was like, well, what happens to you when you're trigger? I'm like, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean? In my body? I don't know. My body doesn't do anything. And so it is the first thing is like actually realizing everyone has physical responses
Yep.
in triggers because it's something in your brain subconsciously has alerted you that you're in danger.
Yep. Exactly.
Danger of rejection, danger of abandonment, danger of feeling like you're unlovable, unworthy, like
Incapable. Yeah.
danger, you're not going to be safe, you're not going to be protected. All of those things subconsciously happen. And so anyway, paying attention to your body and your emotions so that you can recognize it. Because really, you're about to talk about how you've learned to not give in to that trigger, but you can't even change giving in if you don't even know what it is.
Because it's happening on such a subconscious or unconscious level that you don't even realize it's happening.
Yeah.
But the powerful thing about realizing it, when those thoughts come in my brain now, I know it's not me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know it's my
Yes.
triggered brain thinking.
That was something that was
Yes.
super healing for me
Yeah.
at a huge level. Because when I was like, oh, this is not, logically, this is not adult me at all. This is a past piece of me. This is a triggered part of me. then I could have a lot of peace about it. You're not shaming yourself even. You're like, ugh, that's just something that needs to be rewired and healed and dealt with. And that's totally okay. And this isn't actually my reality right now.
This isn't who I am.
This is really what I'm feeling, but this
Exactly.
isn't who I am here in this space. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really freeing as a parent and also freeing for your child, because you think you're that. They also think they're that,
Right.
which brings a lot of, we think as parents, we have shame. Think about how much kids have shame because they keep acting a certain way and can't stop. And they keep creating disconnection and don't know what to do.
And they have no ability to logic. So we as adults at least can logic through a portion of our shame. That doesn't mean we make it disappear, but we can logic through it like, oh, whatever. But the kid just goes, no, the only logic is that I'm bad.
Yeah, their brain's not developed enough to do that. I say parenting is lending your brain to your child.
It's a good way to put that.
And so when you lend your brain to and teach them and help them walk through it from your sophisticated brain, it helps them be able to walk through it when they're in their moment of trigger.
So good.
It's really, really good.
Okay, so you start to notice I'm triggered towards my kid, and then what?
So I've recognized the trigger, and then from there, I bring compassion. I bring comfort.
Which I love.
I recognize how scared I really am. I recognize how alone I feel in it. If you listen to the Grief podcast, I'm a single mom. I don't have a dad to go to or a father to go or a husband to go to and say, hey, this is really hard. Can you tap in now? I'll tap out.
Oh, yeah.
There's no tap out. You're raising 4 kids on your own, and it's scary.
Wild.
And it feels alone. And I can feel that feeling going, oh, no, if I can't do this, no one else can.
Wow.
And so it's terrifying because you know that you don't have the full ability to be both a mother and a father. And so I say that even if you are raising a child with a mother and a father, we all feel that.
Absolutely.
And so what I realize is I'm terrified. And that's causing me to go into fight or flight. It's actually not her.
Right.
I thought it was her, but it's actually my inner world that's causing fight or flight. She's not the predator. She's not the person that's causing me to feel this way. My scared is causing me to feel this way. My out of control is causing me to feel this way. So now I can take care of it.
Right. Because you can. So if she's the problem, you have to try to change her.
Yeah.
To be okay.
The impossible task, right?
Impossible.
Which is,
And I don't care if you're two. It's impossible to change another human. So now we're helpless and hopeless.
Yep.
Yeah.
Every time.
Or controlling and dominating.
Because we have to, because we're in survival.
Yes.
Beating someone into submission.
Yeah.
And I've seen this so many times with couples in my office, where I actually had this the other day where the couple was like, I told them I wanted them to write all of the I will be when you are statements that they believe. And they're like, I will eat better when she is nicer to me. I will pursue him more when he listens better. Or like, because their whole structure for their marriage was built on my behavior is waiting for their behavior to change.
Exactly.
Before I will feel safe when he does ... Instead of like, and I was like, okay, you then you're going to be frustrated. Your hopelessness, you're then going to blame the person for, because
through the
you
roof.
feel so unsafe if you aren't okay, and you feel like you're never going to be okay.
Yeah.
And it's really easy to put that on the people around you. So I just love what you're saying. It's so good.
Yeah. It's really empowering. At first, it actually feels a little scary to recognize that it's really everything going on inside of me. So first people are like, wait, what? No,
I don't like this.
Yeah, exactly. Like, no, but can we at least do 50-50? You know, like it is 50% them, right? Can we do a 50 blame? And I'm like, no, whatever they're doing is not about them. It's about what's going on inside of you. But that's powerful.
Right.
Because I can take care of and become aware of and comfort my internal world.
Yes.
I cannot make another human be okay. Right. I cannot make another human behave to make me feel safe.
So true.
Right.
Whether they're a child or an adult.
So here's a question that I have. Say, for instance, you have a couple that, let's say the husband has a wild spending habit and making wild decisions financially that are really scary because he loses money hand over fist because of his behavior, his addictive behavior, whether it's to gambling or making wild business decisions. What I hear inside of that scenario in a blame-free style thing, it becomes blame-free isn't about the idea that he's not doing anything wrong. There's probably wrong behavior,
definitely
poorly managed behavior, but blame-free style experiences, I'm going to take my power back inside of this experience, and I'm going to find my ability to have peace irregardless of whether or not he tries to sink the ship financially.
Yeah.
Would that be?
Exactly, because we really make ourselves small in that moment. We say, when you stop spending like that, then we're going to be okay.
Right.
But again, the child brain says there's no options. There's no resources. We're stuck. It's high stakes. It's all or nothing. So if I'm treating my husband like that, then he's going to be really scary when he's doing this spending. But if I know I have plenty of options, I will always be okay. I will always have everything I need. If I need to make choices to create boundaries for my safety, for my kids' safety, no problem. I can do that.
Yeah.
But his spending isn't causing me to lose my peace. It's not causing me to have to stop him for me to be okay.
Right.
And that's a scary place, because that means that you actually have to take care of why his spending's bothering you.
Right. Now, on the flip side of that, in that experience, let's say somebody came to being able to manage their own emotions and come to a posture of peace over that. Then does a conversation, let's say, with that spouse become about like, hey, you're actually making some pretty destructive spending habits that are long-term going to cost us in these ways financially. And I mean, what does that look like? What does that conversation then become about?
So if I've taken care of myself, I'm no longer in child brain. I'm talking like an adult.
Right.
So an adult says, this situation is not the end of the world.
Right.
This situation says you can get help. I can get help.
Right.
We can get help. We can figure out a solution. And there's multiple ways we could do this.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm approaching you and your behavior and saying your behavior is affecting me and our family in a negative way. And this isn't okay for me. I'm not mad at you. I'm at peace. But we have to make a change because this isn't practically working for us.
Right.
Right. So there is hey, you actually are affecting this family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
But my ability to be at rest and at peace hasn't been stolen from me inside of it.
Yeah, and that person's not your source.
Yeah.
I know you're married, but it feels like they're your source, and if they're spending, you're screwed.
Right.
But you're okay even if they are spending. And you still can't make the person stop spending.
No.
You have to be able to communicate that to create an invitation for change. But the reason why you're telling them that is to take care of the intimacy and connection in your relationship, not to get them to stop spending.
Yeah, not to save yourself any longer. Right. And like you said, the word invitation, which is one that I like to use often. I think it's a great word. Like when we're in relationships and there are problems and there are conversations to be had, again, they always become invitations. When I am at a posture of peace, they're an invitation to deeper connection. They're an invitation to find resolution. They're an invitation to partnership. They're an invitation to growth, things like that.
Yeah, and that creates free will. Free will is always meant to be there. So when I create an invitation, you get to choose in or choose out.
Yeah.
But because I've taken care of myself, if you choose out, I'm still okay.
going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's interesting because it started happening when actually it was like the first time I learned this concept. The question came into me, like, if I had no shame, how would I react to this situation?
It's a really good question.
If I had no shame, so like if somebody comes up and accuses me of something, this is how it happened actually. This is a real situation. I got accused of something and I didn't do it, but I felt so much emotion.
As if you did.
I felt so much shame. I felt bad and guilt, and I was swirly, and I went into my disconnection, and I remember being like, this is weird because I didn't do this. And I recognized like they didn't have the power to make me feel that way. There was something inside me that was like, I'm not sure if I'm okay with me. So when I asked the question, like, well, do I think that I did something wrong here? Or, because that's still shame if I did something wrong.
Yeah.
But do I feel like I can be at peace with myself in this area?
Yeah, even if you did do something wrong.
Totally. When that happened, I was like, I can do that. So then their accusation is no longer. So actually, I never cleared my name in that accusation. I never had a conversation with them because I was like, it's your accusation is not the thing that is causing me my emotions. When I'm okay with me, then you can accuse me.
Exactly. And part of our justice thing with our spouses, with any situation, is we're trying to get justice so that maybe we can believe that we're okay.
Right.
And if I make you believe that I'm okay, then I will feel okay.
Yes.
So most of like these justice, whatever they're called, that the people are going after are really about themselves. They're not about what they're trying to bring justice to.
Yep.
So could you tell us a story, one with your kids of something they did, how you triggered, what you told yourself, and then how you responded to them.
Yeah. So one of my favorite stories, because it was one of the first times it actually worked.
It worked.
Because there was this tension when I was first starting. Like I would start out strong. I'm not going to blame. It's not about her. And then I'd be like, it is about her. So I had this like kind of push-pull going in the beginning, because it takes a lot to do this exercise that I'm about to walk through in the moment.
A lot of work, a lot of self-control.
Yep.
And
awareness.
Does it get easier though the more you do it?
It gets so much easier. You still sometimes get blindsided by triggers that you didn't realize are there. So that kind of is like, oh, that was kind of tender and vulnerable.
Right.
But it does get easier. So I'm practicing. I'm getting better at it. I'm not quite there. I pick her up from a friend's house and I pick her up early. And for kids, that's real bad. So she's like
major infraction.
14 at the time. Yeah.
You ruined my life, Mom.
Those were her exact words. She's like, you ruined my life. You only think about yourself.
You don't care about me.
Yeah. You don't care about me. These are all the words that are going on. And
are you screaming internally? I'm a single mom who does everything to lay down her life for you. Are you insane? You monster.
I picked you up. I didn't forget you. Don't I get points for something?
Totally. We definitely want to justify it.
Totally.
So makes us feel better. But anyways, so I'm in the moment. I'm like, okay, this is it. I had this like brave, I say you always have like a courageous moment when you face your trigger. I'm like, okay, it's time. Like, this is it. So I maybe almost want to cry just because it's so hard to be brave sometimes, because we get so stuck in our trigger.
Yes.
But I could like see through dimly, and I was like, okay, this is it. So she's going to town. She's saying all the things we just said. I'm driving, so that made it a little bit easier because I can kind of disengage from her, but we're still right there, passenger seat, driver's seat. And I start to comfort myself. I realize how scared I am. I realize how unfair it is. I realize that this, like, I'm so frustrated at this moment. Does she even care? She's so ungrateful. She's, taking for everything for granted. But then I realize it's nothing to do with any of that. I'm scared. I feel alone right now. I don't know what to do. And I can feel this emotion kind of come over me. It wasn't, I didn't cry. It wasn't like that. It was more like this softness inside of me, where all my defenses, like my fists started out like tight.
Yes.
I could just feel them like relax. My hands were on the steering wheel, so I could feel like relax. And I'm like, you're okay. And I could feel I'm okay. And so
it's interesting that I just want to, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
that's fine.
In my own world, in this thing, when I actually accurately identify the real emotions, it's much easier to feel them and release them.
Yeah.
I think people think emotions are too powerful, but it's often because they're not even feeling the real emotions.
The reaction emotions are powerful.
Yes.
But the tender emotions are almost sweet in a way.
Yeah.
We can come really close to them. We have such like a care for ourselves in that moment.
Yeah.
And I can even feel it's like this, like almost like this like sigh inside. I mean, I didn't do it externally, but I could feel that inside. And I felt the feeling of, I'm going to be okay. She's going to be okay.
And it was, I mean, that's the deep connecting to yourself.
Yeah.
Like you were more connected to yourself than you were to the trigger.
Yeah, exactly.
To the fight or flight, to the fear. You were more connected to yourself than the fear.
Yeah, exactly. And so hers was like, wah, 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 because I came so close to my own heart.
Yeah.
So now is my chance to see her. It's extraordinary when your heart is well cared for and you're in that tender place, what the world looks like.
Yeah.
It goes from like gray and dark to sunshine and light. I remember even in the car feeling like the car felt brighter to me after I'd taken care of my heart. And I looked over at her, and for probably the first time in her life, when I looked at her, she was my 2-year-old again. And I could feel her out of control feeling. And I was like, hey, I was just feeling that about 30 seconds ago.
Totally.
And I was like, I know what that feels like. It feels horrible. And just because I'm flight and she's fight, we're both out of control.
Right.
And I could feel how scared she was, and that she was going to miss out, that she wasn't going to belong, that she wasn't going to be able to do what was in her heart to do. And I could feel just how it felt so big, because her brain said, this is the end of the world, that you got picked up 15 minutes earlier.
Absolutely.
As an adult, I can say that's stupid. It's just 15 minutes. It's no big deal. But for her, it was.
End of the world.
And I could empathize. Even though
Wow.
I don't cry when someone picks me up 15 minutes early,
Uh-huh.
I have felt like if I couldn't do something,
Yeah.
if something didn't work out, I felt that disappointment. I've been looking
Yes.
forward to this and it didn't work out. And I'm so disappointed. It feels like the end of the world.
Mhm.
Even
Yeah.
as an adult, I felt that before.
Yeah.
And so I'm feeling with her and I'm seeing her as this child because in her trigger, she is a child.
Totally.
And I had all this love for her, like the same degree that I had been loving myself and having compassion for myself and being sweet with myself. That same sweetness was given to her. And what happened that was so amazing is she looked at me and I looked at her and it's like she knew.
Oh.
And her eyes got like, she has really big brown eyes like me. And she like opened up her eyes and she like looked at me and then she's like, I just didn't really want to leave early. And I was like, what just happened? Because I had been
Wow.
disciplining her whole life. She would rather like as soon as like disciplining when I if I would have told her stop acting like that.
Yeah.
You should be thankful I picked you up.
Totally.
Don't throw a fit. You shouldn't talk to me like that. You're gonna get disciplined. She'd be like yeah, like intensify.
Yeah.
And like if I tried to get her to stop, it would just get stronger.
Well, you ended the power struggle.
I did.
You stopped
Yeah.
the power struggle without words.
Yep, exactly. And she knew it because
She
just like we
felt
said with
it.
the trigger, you feel the trigger,
Yes.
but you also feel the compassion.
Yes.
Wow.
So compassion was being overflowing to her.
It's so good.
And the intimacy and connection, I know she didn't understand what was going on, but her eyes got so big in that moment and she just
Wow.
like settled down. And I was like, whoa. Because I know, I was like, whoa. Because what, discipline, restrictions, punishments couldn't do, compassion did.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
And so she like
Wow.
settled down. We ended up having a conversation. She apologized.
Wow.
I was able to like understand her. So she felt understood. I was able to say, wow, that was a really big deal that I picked you up sooner. Because I could feel it was a big deal.
Right.
Even though
Right.
my logical adult brain said it wasn't, I could feel, because I was connected to my heart, I could be connected to her heart.
Yes.
And
So
when
you
I-
could validate her.
Yeah. And so when I validated that and she saw and understood her
Mm-hmm.
and I was with her in it, we were the same. We were equals.
Yes.
I'm a big advocate for being equal in parenting. Do I have the final say? Of course.
Yes.
I'm the parent. But I want to be equals in we've both felt these same things before.
Yes.
And I see you and I hear you and I understand you.
Yeah. So an equal in the sense of empathy.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
Yeah.
I can understand where you're coming from. And this is honestly everything we do with marriage stuff.
Yeah.
Is this whole, and the interesting thing is scientifically to work through the pain process in your brain, you need validation.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to feel attuned with somebody who's with you, who believes in you, who loves you, who has compassion on you. And so what happened is you were able to attune with yourself, have self-compassion,
Yep.
and then you were able to have compassion on her and validate her. Well, that actually helps her brain go through the pain process. So it doesn't surprise me scientifically
Exactly.
that she was able to then apologize because she was able to get out of the pain.
Yeah.
But empathy, and I've seen this in our marriage, and this is what we do so much with couples is working to get back to the place, if you can get out of the trigger, back to compassion. How have you felt the same way? And honestly, in most of me and Justin's fights, he feels the exact same way I feel. We're both not feeling heard, or we're both feeling run over, or we're both feeling misunderstood, or we're
scared.
both feeling
Yep.
scared. So but in the moment when you're triggered, you're just like, you da 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 da.
Well, and then what you eliminate, I mean, how do I put this? You start eliminating war.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People have this perpetual energy they put off of war, especially when you're triggered, you're at war.
Yeah.
And what you're saying is without using words is there's no need for war here anymore. Yeah. And all of a sudden people get to go, oh, I get to let go of my triggered state.
Mm-hmm. I
There's
don't need it for survival
I
anymore.
don't need to survive because the person across from me, the authority figure in my life,
Yeah.
isn't out to destroy me
It's really good.
or steal from me or anything else. They're for me.
Yeah.
And that's what you're saying. Like that is I would say that's the fastest way to end major cataclysmic, catastrophic meltdowns inside of marriages, inside of friendships, inside of relationships with kids is when we actually take a posture. To me, leadership or authority really is the person who is going to chooses to posture themselves in a place of managing themselves well.
Being an example of that. Yeah.
Exactly. I know that I'm a leader when I choose to actually manage my soul well, whether or not I've been given a title. And I know that I talk to especially men about this, like, hey, your role in the house is to be a leader. And they're like, well, they're trying to figure out what does leadership mean? And I'm like, leadership doesn't mean domination. It means like managing choosing to go, I'm going to learn how to manage my soul really well to model something to my wife and my kids that becomes an invitation out of war into a place of peace and connection and all of that. And so,
yeah, and I would say, like, I've seen Justin do this. There'll be times when he can, like, we had he got triggered the other day, and we were talking, and we both got triggered. Let's be real, because that's typically what happens. Like, even you with your kids, you're both triggered.
We are both triggered.
Oftentimes, it happens to both people at the same time, and that's why fights and conflict is so complicated, because two people don't have their brains. Two people are kids.
Yep.
Yeah.
Two people are not using their logic. Their blood is in their fight or freeze. They are just protecting themselves. And so it really is like two people having a sword fight. So what he did is he left, which was great. And he went and processed till he could get under the armor.
Yeah.
Till he could get, so like and I would say, like, I think eventually we'll be as good as you where we can do it in the moment. And there are times we can do it in the moment.
I still have to step away and connect to my heart because things get blurry. So it's not 100% of the time.
Totally.
But it's easier in the moment than it used to be.
Yes. And I would say that there's lots of moments it's easier for me. But this time we had to step away. And he was able to actually go and think through what is really happening in me. What is
the real
really
story?
going on? And the real story was, it was reminding him of something that had happened as a kid.
Yeah.
And he was feeling out of control or blamed or whatever. And even though that was not my heart in what I was not actually blaming, but it triggered the fear that had come from blame so much in his childhood. So he was able to come back, and then when he communicated with me, he wasn't communicating, you made me feel this way. He was communicating, hey, our conversation happened, and then I recognized this thing came up in me.
I felt this.
I felt this. And it was like I instantly melted. Because when I could hear what was going on in him, I was not defending myself because he wasn't telling me I did it. I was not having to put my defenses up. Not that I would have to, even if he told me I did it.
Yeah, but it's natural, even if you're not meaning to.
Totally.
Right.
But I'm saying it was so easy. And this is leadership. And this is what you're talking about for parents and for husbands and wives. Like, I'm meant to lead as much as he's meant to lead in this way. But then all of a sudden it was so easy for me to have compassion on him, to have empathy, to be like, oh, I'm so sorry. I would never want that for you. And it led the reconciliation. So I love the learning how to recognize your own trigger, your own feelings. And then you're so good at self-compassion and nurture meeting that. So could you tell us another story that you have? Did you have more on that story?
No, except for real quick, one more thing.
Yeah.
So a lot of people after that story, parents would say, okay, but then when did the consequence come?
Right.
She talked to you that way. She was disrespectful. She was rude. When do we punish her? Because everyone's real excited about that part.
Totally.
Love punishment.
People really are. I feel like people are not even hearing the first part, and then they're like, but then what did you do? How did you punish her? You know, it's really interesting how we kind of missed the whole thing.
Yeah.
Totally.
Punishment of behavior is different than punishment of person. And so when I'm seeing the person, what she did matters, but she matters more.
Right.
And when I make that my priority and the consequence that's going to come from her behavior, she's actually partnering with me.
Right.
So when we got home in that situation, she's like, I'll go ahead and clean the kitchen. And I didn't even tell her to clean the kitchen. I actually didn't do anything. The moment was just so important for me to experience. I actually didn't want to ruin it
Right.
by now making consequences and making pay. I've been doing that her whole life.
Yeah.
Right.
I've been consequence queen with her life. She knows
Yes.
consequences.
Totally.
I've taught her well. But because I did teach her well, but also because our intimacy of connection, she was implementing her own discipline.
Right.
Because she wants to be better. She
Yeah.
doesn't want to act like that. She feels shame because of how she treated me.
Mm-hmm.
And for her to be able to do a consequence because she feels compassion for me, empathy for me is a far better discipline than me
Absolutely.
forcing her to do the dishes when we get home.
That's amazing.
Sometimes we do have to implement it because they're not
Totally.
mature enough to do it for themselves. So I'm not
Yes.
saying that you'll never give consequence.
Right.
But the consequence that they partner with is going to be a far greater consequence than the consequence that you force because of their behavior.
It's a great way to put
Absolutely.
it,
It's so good.
where they actually see it. They're connected to it. They're connected to maybe the destructive choice that they made.
That they have
And
to
they're-
fix and clean up.
Yeah, and they're like, yeah, I actually don't like that I did that.
Mhm.
And I get it.
Yeah.
I actually, this cost you something, or this cost us something in making destructive decisions like this. What can we do to correct?
Yep. And then we become more of a team in it.
Yeah.
We're on the same page.
Yep.
How can we do this together? Versus you made a
Totally.
mess, you clean it up, come back to me when you're done.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Like that.
Okay. Tell us either another story from your. I think stories are so good in helping people,
Mhm.
like practically. How do I
love
implement
stories
this?
Too, yeah.
So either one from you or from people that you've worked with.
I'm going to share another story about my own kids.
Great.
Only
That's
because
perfect.
I kind of want to do the other side of it.
Oh,
For
wonderful.
the quote unquote good kid.
Yeah.
You know,
great. I
the
love
one
that.
does listen, the one that does
Yep.
obey, the one that we aren't triggered by, but
Yeah.
that we still are triggered by.
Okay. Great. Yeah.
So I have another daughter. She's amazing as well. So is my first. Just so everyone knows, let the record show, my oldest is amazing.
Yes.
She's just strong.
Yeah.
I have another daughter. She's a lot quieter, more compliant. She kind of does what you say. So you're like, oh, great. We're not going to get triggered.
right.
So in me not being triggered by her, remember how you were saying how triggers are good?
Mm-hmm.
Triggers tell you that there's something not okay inside of
Yeah.
me that I want to take care of so I can be more present with you. Well, because my daughter was so good
Mm-hmm.
and she listened so well, I would neglect her in a lot of ways.
Oh.
I wouldn't be triggered by her, which I was like, great. Life
Right.
is easy. This is the good life.
This is wonderful.
Yeah.
She's so easy to
Yep.
deal with.
And so I would be actually shaming her, even though this is going to sound a little bit weird. I was shaming her because she was good, and I was shaming my other daughter because she was bad.
Right.
So that's still shame to say, because you're good, I pull you close,
Right.
and because she's bad, I push you, the other daughter, away.
Right.
That's still shame that she has to live up to.
Right.
Now she has to be the good daughter.
Yeah.
In order
She
for her to be
Yep.
loved, she
Yep.
has to continue
Continue
I
that
was still doing the
process.
exact same system I was doing with my other daughter,
Yeah.
but I'm basing it on her being good. She's loved and accepted.
Well, and this is, I'm going to jump in. This
Yeah.
is a big thing that most people don't connect, which is the system of shame is performance and shame.
Yes.
So lots of people recognize the ew feeling, like,
Yeah.
oh, I failed. I'm the worst. I'm
shame.
so bad. But that feeling of I'm better than everybody, or I just did this so much greater than everyone. That is,
Rooted in the shame
that's the
system.
same. I always think of
Yeah.
shame. It's the same stick.
Yeah,
It's just the different sides of the same stick.
the good and evil.
The
Yeah.
good and evil.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
And so that good is as much of a burden
Yeah.
as bad. So
I
she has to
remember
live up to that.
My pastor's wife used to say when I was growing up, she would be like, when people complimented her, she felt trapped. Now I have to be that for
Yeah.
if they would come and be like, you're so kind. She's like, now I have to remember to be kind all the time. Or if they were like,
It's a
you're so
system.
generous. Now I have to remember to be generous all the time.
Yeah. And so I want to share a story to show how that needs to be paid attention to as much as
Great.
those that are externally manifesting
great.
versus internally not being able to express yourself. So she went through this phase. She was probably like 3 years old, where she would like fall hard. She would be bleeding, and she would like, she fell off the stool one time, and I was like, where'd she go? And then I like looked over, and then she like pops up, and I'm like, oh, okay. And she's like, I'm fine. And I was like, are you okay? I'm fine. And so I was like, okay, she's fine. Cool. She doesn't throw fits. She's not a baby. She's good.
Yeah.
No problem. What a tough girl. What a
Totally.
good girl.
What a
Yeah.
good girl.
Uh-huh. And
no
so-
problem here.
So then I like, she goes off. I don't know where she goes. And I kind of follow her just to kind of, I wonder if she's okay. She's in the bathroom putting a Band-Aid on. And I'm like, oh, honey, you're not okay. You're bleeding. You're putting a Band-Aid on for yourself. You're 3 years old.
Oh.
And I was like, this is really sad. So I went to reach for her, and she pulled away. And she said, no, I'm good. I'm fine.
Wow.
And I was like, whoa, my fear of her not being okay, my fear of the chaos of pain, the chaos of her not behaving well, probably an overflow because I've experienced hard things before, does not give her the space to be reactionary, to be triggered, to feel safe enough to be able to say, I'm not doing good. I'm in pain. I need you. And I realized it was the same thing,
the
in a different
energy,
manifestation.
basically, to make this very hippy dippy, the energy in me, she is picking up on and she is responding to.
Yeah, exactly. As much as my fight or flight reaction to bad behavior, I am approving, loving, based on her not feeling pain, her not overreacting.
Because
her
I'm
not throwing
scared
a
of the
fit.
chaos, or I'm scared of being overwhelmed, or I'm scared of more. So she's, and I actually think this is very true. Lots of compliant kids are picking up on their parents' chaos, and they just want to make their parents happy.
Which is flight.
Right.
So they're just as triggered with no way out. And at least my more demonstrative child, it's
Got
recognizable.
attention.
Exactly.
Yeah.
She knows there's a problem and she's making it
She
clear.
at least expressed something out of it.
But the good kid doesn't know. And so my advice is to pay attention both to the flight child and the fight child and treat them equally in need of compassion, comfort, connection, and not blaming them even for the good.
I was definitely the flight child.
Yeah.
I was like, no, I'm good. I got this.
Yeah.
And you know, for years and even in marriage, it was, I got this.
Yeah.
I'm cool. I'm good.
Which sounds good, but it's not.
But it's
if
not,
we asked
no.
you about that, I would say you could probably feel your mom's internal world
Oh, absolutely.
and her fears.
She needs me to be okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to be okay so that now she can be okay.
Yeah.
And that affected even our marriage, because then you were so tuned into my feelings that then it was like, I need you to be okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
then I was really pissed when you weren't, when I did everything I could to be as good as possible. And now you're not okay. Now I'm pissed because I'm like, I've loved you in every way possible.
And I still don't have connection. In fact, we're further than we were before.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And like there'd be times when I was just having a bad day. It had nothing to do with Justin.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And his internal world is, I can't be okay because she's not okay.
And it was the idea that source somewhere inside of me, I am the center of all happiness or all displeasure.
Yeah.
And there's a lie that we were sold. And in this blame-free style communication or relationship, it eliminates a lot of that possibility.
It really does.
Of the idea that I can control mom or dad's world, control their emotions. And that's one of the biggest problems that I have, even with clients who come in as full-on adults who haven't had an honest conversation their entire damn life with their parents to say, hey, I feel hurt, I feel frustrated or anything, because they're like, I'm gonna make them feel horrible. And that's that's something that's convinced at the deepest cellular level from their childhood is, I can actually control this person's happiness.
Yeah.
So, so you probably then had to address, I have fear of being out of control.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I have fear of that, of control. I have fear if a child gets hurt. What are you going to do? That's a big trigger for a lot of parents, because if they get hurt, it's out of your control, especially if they were being, they weren't doing what they were supposed to be doing. This is why we don't do this. It's shaming and coming from my own fear.
Right.
And then also just the chaos of like, she's also my clumsiest. And so she'll break things real easily. She like always like steps on my toes on accident, you know, and I feel the trigger to be like reacting
what is
to
wrong
her.
with
Yeah,
you?
totally. What's
Why
wrong with
can't
you? You need to be more
walk?
careful. Yeah. And even if I say it really nice, honey, you really need to be more careful.
Right.
She's still feeling that same triggered response from what I'm putting out there.
Yeah.
Right.
So what I hear, because we're getting pretty close to wrapping this up here, in a relationship, so if Abby and I are having an exchange, it all begins at our own emotional level. Really, blame-free communication isn't necessarily, it is about words we say, but it's more than about words we say. It's about heart posture, stepping into it.
Yeah, it really is. And let me add just one thing real quick about
do.
that. What you're doing when you're not blaming, you're pausing the other person, you're taking care of what's going on inside of you, then you're able to communicate what you really want to say. Most people with communication are trying to figure out how to communicate, but more importantly, what are you communicating? If I was telling my daughter what I was feeling and I just said, I'm frustrated that you're throwing a fit versus I'm scared, I feel out of control, I don't know what to do. There's two very different communications happening.
Absolutely.
So what you communicate and blame-free communication is more important than how you communicate it. You could bumble it up and say it wrong, but if it's coming from what you really want to say, it'll still land.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even until like, oh, I'm actually feeling sad right now, and I just know I'm going through pain. And,
Yeah.
So what would be an example maybe of an exchange between Abby and I that might happen? That because I'm trying to think, like, if someone's listening to this and are going like, we do have a real problem inside of our household, what does it look like? So part of it is I hear you saying, trying to figure an example from our life that maybe would be useful to use. Do you have anything inside of your head?
What do you commonly blame each other for?
What do we commonly blame each other for?
We should do a session where she does a session.
I actually
that
was
would be
thinking that.
awesome.
I swear, verbatim was thinking in the last few minutes, we need to do a session with her on this where she walks us through
so
something.
people can
Yeah.
see what it's like.
Yeah,
In
I
fact,
think
I'm
it
not
would
going to
be
go any
better.
further into that. Let's do that.
Yeah.
Let's do that as a future episode here.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
It would be when you see it done in example, we'll hear it in the sense, but when you hear it happen, you get it. Because some of the questions you were asking, okay, then what? Everyone wants to know the then what, but they
Right.
haven't done the first step first, so you don't understand the then what.
Yeah.
If you do the first part, you know the then what.
Yeah.
That's good.
So here's homework for you guys if you're listening. I'd love for you to start with the basics of what we talked about. Begin with recognizing your triggers. So there's multiple levels on this. So one thing I like to do is I think everybody has like 4 main triggers. Now that's not scientific, but I think you can actually find, I have several that like there might be a different way that it's showing up.
I call it a trigger pattern.
Yes.
It can vary a little bit, but there's definitely a pattern.
Yes. Everybody has patterns. And so I have kind of found like my main ones. What is it that I trigger over most often? How am I where does it show up? So whenever Justin does this, this, and this, I trigger. Okay, well, what's the underlying trigger? So that's the first. When do I trigger? What do I feel like when I trigger in my body? And what are my thoughts when I trigger? If you can start, that'd be the first homework that I'd give. The second thing, and that's a lot of homework for people who've never done this.
And one thing really quick, pay attention to flight and fight. Because some people are like, I don't yell, I don't have fight. Pay attention to flight too.
Yeah, I disconnect, I disengage. Those triggers are harder to notice sometimes, but they are equally.
And you feel them in your body too.
Yeah. And then the second step is having compassion towards yourself in those moments. Not being angry that the little kid part of you showed up, but actually when the little kid part of you shows up, it's a little bit easier to give compassion to a little part of you. And I have like a picture by my bed of like 7-year-old me or 4-year-old me, or I actually have no idea what age I am. Probably more like 4. And
You
it
know
like
her so well.
I just
So connected to her.
I'm so good at it. But whenever I look at the picture, I like have like this compassion for that part of me. And so actively beginning to learn to have compassion on the childlike part of me has been huge. So recognize your trigger and have compassion.
One thing about compassion, it's really hard sometimes to give it to ourselves, even if we're connecting to our younger self. So think about what you would do for your own children.
Yes.
Think about what you would do for somebody that you love, and that feeling will well up inside of you, and then turn it towards yourself.
So good.
That's good.
And sometimes the other thing you can do is imagine somebody that is really safe and loving, how they would have compassion on you. Because that is, there's all these tricks that we have to try to get. I have like probably like a handful of tricks like to how to connect people to compassion because they're so adverse to it. But compassion heals your soul.
That's so good. All right. So to quickly wrap this up, if you got touched by anything in this, please rate, review, subscribe, share.
I just want to say something about that really quick.
Yeah.
They're always saying that every episode because they're encouraging you to get this message out. You really need to. It's like a responsibility. It's not just because it sounded good and I liked it. It's actually a responsibility to give this to other people. So it's really important.
Oh, thank you.
I like that. I like
That's
that.
true.
And so with that, we are really thankful that you joined us, Laura.
Yes.
Thanks for having me.
It's so, I mean, it's as powerful today as it was when I heard you on the airport runway years ago.
Signing off from Laura. Go ahead, Laura.
What do I do? What do I do?
I don't know. What do you want to do?
Until next time.
Goodbye.